Hey everyone, it's Mrs. Wallace. So, as you can see, today is a crazy day. I'm on a Model UN trip, somewhere between fourth hour, third hour, fifth hour. So, Miss Lawson put me absent for hour three, and I'm kind of organizing some of the paperwork for the trip. So, I'm leaving something for you to work on today and tomorrow, and it's a pretty straightforward task. First of all, some of this involves some reading and some information about the executive branch. I will put up a video that has some background from our, class slideshow about the executive branch, but I think you'll also see it in some of the sources that I posted. So there's a few sources there. One will include, the copy of the Constitution. You have your hard copy from the last time. So one way of checking out some of the executive branch's powers is looking at the actual Constitution itself. You're looking at Article 2. So Article 1 was the legislative branch. Article 2, you have a source from I think it's from the Foreign Policy Association, or from the Council of Foreign Policy, I guess, CFP. It is a source about the role of Congress and the president regarding foreign policy. And so that's really useful to note. So when we think about like the, potential ceasefire in Ukraine, or the way that the United States might get involved with Israel and Gaza, those are things to kind of have an idea about, where does the constitutional power sit? What kinds of powers does the president have in terms of foreign policy? There's also an ACLU doc specifically about the role of executive orders. The ACLU is the American Civil Liberties Union. It is a source that is generally targeting issues of civil liberties. So they are particularly troubled with some of President Trump's recent executive orders. So just kind of know the context. It's about executive orders, but it's also going to have some agenda of its own. So just kind of recognize that about the source. But it was a primer that I found about executive orders. So, it's kind of interesting, what is this executive order thing? Is it kind of like an elastic clause for the president? And, can the president create an executive order about pretty much anything? And what kind of role might the courts play? There also was an article front page about executive power and breaches of executive power from the New York Times this morning, so I included that. And then there's two crash course videos really from government classes that also detail some of the powers of the executive branch. So I'll put up my slideshow, which has, kind of some particular categories of presidential power. There's a foreign policy role, for example. There's also an administrative role, so leading, the cabinet and the various agencies. So when we think of like the federal workforce, so some of those things are good to think about in terms of, what are the various hats that the president wears, and where might the power sit. And then if the task that I'm going to ask you to do is really straightforward. You can get a little creative about it, but really think of it as like a note-taking task. You're really collecting a great deal of information for yourself. If you imagine that you're building like an infographic, okay, like on the computer. If you're somebody who's very visually oriented and you want to draw, you can totally do that as well. This is going to be, if you've ever seen one of those, images that has like a stick person in the middle with some characteristics, throughout. We're not looking to do President Trump. We're looking to do like hypothetical American president, and then kind of surrounding that stick figure of sorts, how might you design an infographic that really details some of the powers of the executive, right? So how would you kind of categorize some of these powers? What are maybe some really significant powers? So almost in like a primer of a page or so, what kind of info can you include? It's not going to be super wordy because you're going to have a lot of things to say, and you want to kind of keep the text kind of tight, but you can use images, you can use a variety of things to kind of make it clear, on a page in an infographic, what are the powers of the president? And, to you, you're making some choices about, what is like the most significant powers of the president. There's lots and lots of smaller aspects of this, but we're looking for those like really big core things, things that you're going to get from the various sources. And just like with the Congress, there are expressed powers, these powers that are given by the Constitution, and then there's also going to be some powers that are implied, right? So that's where the courts come in. So some court precedent also serves to give us an idea about executive powers. And one place that we can look at that is in like reference to, war and the use of military. There are very distinct, words in the Constitution that describe the declaration of war in the hands of Congress. But at the same time, we know that the president can call up troops. So there is some extension of executive power, and some of that became additional implied powers through acts of Congress or through court precedent. So we'll look at that when we talk about this on Monday. Okay, so you have a couple of sources. I'll put up my slideshow, and then if I find some additional tools for you, you can kind of look at the sources today, gather some information today, watch some of the videos, read some of the texts, look at the foreign policy thing, look at the New York Times article, kind of collect some information, and I'll put up the slideshow as well with a little video, and then from there we'll do the infographic. Okay, and you can submit that to Schoology. I'll make a post for that. Okay, be well.